Subscribe and press the bell icon.
हे गाइस व्हाट्सअप हम लोग वापस आ गए द स्ट्रेंथ मॉककास्ट पे। आज हम लोग के साथ एक और नई गेस्ट होस्ट है मोनालिसा। सो मोनालिसा, कैन यू इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ टू आवर ऑडियंस प्लीज?
Hey guys, I'm really thankful for you to welcoming me to your podcast. So I'm Mona Lisa Dayanand, owner of Alpha Women Fitness. So I'm basically an electronics engineer. From engineering background, I started coaching especially women, and there is a lot of stories behind it why I started coaching women leaving the engineering field. So I'll take you guys back to 5 years before what I was. So we'll just begin with, how I dealt with obesity, with a lot of different health problems, and how I shifted from my engineering background to fitness background. And from then again, I've niched down to training only women. And again, in that, women who struggle with obesity, with PCOD, with thyroid, and all of that. So yeah, I'll begin with begin with telling my journey. Okay.
परफेक्ट, या
Yeah. Yes. So it's probably around 2013 where we used to study basically in Andhra, that too in South India. There is this IIT coaching thing where you need to compulsorily study from morning 7 to night 7 to 8 o'clock. So that's almost like 12 hours of sitting in the institution and just reading. And we even on Saturdays and Sundays we never had a time to even go home or do any form of physical activity. So basically our plus one and plus two was just sitting in the institution getting prepared to crack IIT. So that's when a lot of people along with me, I must they can relate to the struggles I faced. So because of lack of physical activity and because of a lot of study issues, a lot of pressure because of study issues, I started obviously eating more. So after I finished my plus one and plus two, then I had to get into engineering, and for that I had to come to Bangalore. So compared to the city where my native place, and Bangalore is a little bit bigger city. So there I have noticed that everyone were looking a little bit fitter, but I was very much obese, and then till then I never checked my weight. So as soon as I checked, I've understood that I was 98 kilos, like it's almost near to 100 kgs. So I had issues with finding proper like clothes for me. Even double XL or triple XL used to be difficult to even fit me. So even there are times where there is a place called Wonderline Bangalore. So there are certain rides for a particular weight. So when you are overweight, you are not allowed to even go to that ride. So I had faced issues like that. And even when I went into my engineering, like a lot of people thought that my both of my parents they do resistance training very frequently in a week. So they have so naturally, because people who lift weights regularly and take care of their nutrition, they look much younger. And because I was obese, people actually thought that my mom is my daughter and I'm my mom's mother, and I came for joining my mom in the college. So like that's the extreme disadvantages I faced because I was obese. And then as soon as classes started and I started attending, no one knew me by the name of Mona Lisa. I was just recognized by the name Auntie. It was very embarrassing to me. And I have even faced issues with ragging, body shaming, and all of that. So then I finally realized that I need to stop myself by doing anything, but I need to reduce weight. I During 2013 or 14, we did not have Instagram. I don't even remember if we have Instagram, and even awareness about weight loss or about nutrition or physical activity was not that high as it is right now. So I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know where to go to even approach for a weight loss program. So, like every single individual who is obese and who wants to reduce weight, I did the same thing. I starved myself. I ate very low calories, like even below 1,000 calories for a longer period. And I used to do a bunch of cardio, like at least 3 to 4 hours of cardio, along with a lot of walking. I didn't prioritize my sleep as well, and I ate less. So what happened is, it's not only me. Any person who's in a very aggressive deficit will lose weight. But along with that, I have lost a lot of weight. But along with that, I've lost a lot of muscle mass and strength as well. So there was a time when even lifting 1 liter water bottle became difficult for me because I lost a lot of strength. So that's when I've understood that what process I'm going through is wrong, but I didn't know whom to approach again. So as my parents, they have already have little experience on weight training. They have introduced me to what a body weight squat is, what a wall push up is, what a basic crunch is, or a balanced meal is. So that's when I started working on nutrition as well as physical activity in a very little amount. So after I have reduced 20 kilos or something in this process, I have joined in a gym. So gym is something very, very new to me. I didn't know what to do. All I got to know is women should do cardio, and only after they shed their body fat, or only women who are willing to go into powerlifting or bodybuilding, only they should weight train. Normal women do not weight train. So that is the concept which I have, and a lot of people generalize like that. So back in 4 to 5 years before, so that's when I just used to go to gym, but I have done only cardio, and that too only on treadmill. So spending at least 1.5 hour on treadmill is the only thing I used to do in gym. I've again repeatedly done that along with very few body weight workouts. Um, so because I was still doing engineering, as every single parent, they didn't let me invest on a personal trainer to get educated on what weight training is. So it became really difficult for me to convince my parents and tell them that, hey, I really need a coach to, learn all of these weight training and all of the techniques. So finally, my parents agreed, and I hired a coach. That's when I got introduced to weights. So basically, even before approaching a coach, so what usually happened is I went into the weight training session. I didn't know what to do. So I saw weights, and obviously, like every single person, I Googled about what exercises you need to do in gym. And when you approach Google is like, if you type banana is bad, it'll show you why banana is bad. If you type banana is good, it'll show you why banana is good. So I had lot of information regarding to weight training, where I have read that you need to do a crazy amount of crunches to reduce your belly fat and all of that. So I'll list out few blunders what I have done in my resistance training as soon as I started. So I used to do shrugs for 100 repetitions with 1 kg dumbbell. Really, I did that. And people used to just laugh and go away in front of me. No one even told that what shrugs are for. I thought that lat pull down is for your biceps. And I used to hold this 10 kg dumbbells and walk on stairs for so many hours together. So there are huge dumbbells, there are huge blunders which I have done initially as soon as I started my weight training. So that's when I have approached a coach and started working on my weight training. So that's when I noticed something really different. So when you lose weight, when you do not combine with resistance training, what women usually do is, when they undereat, they will definitely lose their weight, but they will not drop their body fat percentage. The body fat percentage will drop in a very slow pace, and obviously their metabolism will screw up. So what happens is, as most women store their most of their body fat in the lower region, obviously, if you do not combine with resistance training, you will lose weight, but you cannot target the stubborn fat. Let it be your abdominal region, or let it be your lower body fat. So that's the miracle which I've actually seen with resistance training, that you can actually target your stubborn fat and improve seeing muscle over there and fat dropping in the exact region. So that's the one single thing which I couldn't see when I combined with cardio, or when I starved myself. So that process was really nice, where I could see I was building strength by losing body fat at the same time, as well as I started seeing my delts, bicep and tricep, all of that for the first time. That was really fascinating for me. So that's when, along with resistance training, I understood that I need to take care of my nutrition as well. But, again, during that time, awareness about calories, or awareness about macros, or calorie deficit, all of that was not that easy like as it's now. So I've again, approached internet, and I struggled to get the correct information over there. But then I started doing everything on my own, tried different diets like carb cycle, keto, and all of that. And basically try to understand what calories are or what deficit is. So see, if you weight train for a 1 month, and if you stop from going to gym, you will obviously feel that, hey, something is something less is there in my routine, and I should go back to working out again. But when I have lost so much weight, I've got used to going to gym every single day, taking care of my meals. I've understood that engineering is not my thing. When I am so much passionate about losing so much weight, I still need to pursue career in this. So that's when I have hired a coach, and I thought that I should take my body to extreme and see how much maximum I can drop my body fat to. So that's when I thought that I should compete in bodybuilding show. So obviously, when it comes to bodybuilding, you need to drop your body fat to your lowest base. So that's when I've hired a coach. I've lost from like I have begun when I was 98 kilos, and I've dropped myself to 48 kilos. It's 4 years process, and I was at my lowest body fat percentage. So when I started training with this coach, I've obviously lost a lot of body fat, but along with that, again, my period cycle, I've lost the track of my period cycle, because women's body is very much different than men. When they go to a certain extent of body fat, their hormonal cycle will definitely screw up, because cholesterol level and body fat percentage to a certain amount is very much required for women's hormonal health to be proper. So that's when I again experienced disadvantages of being in such a strict diet, and being in such a training phase where I used to work out twice a day, along with cardio, along with steps, and along with taking care of my meals. So I have seen two extremes of dropping my body fat percentage to the lowest, or dropping my having my body fat percentage to the highest. So that's when I've understood that bodybuilding is not my thing, because your first priority should be taking care of your health. And when I was into bodybuilding phase, the first thing was I was not healthy at all. I didn't have enough energy to even do a proper squat or a proper deadlift, or to even, shall I continue?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't even have enough energy to do my physical activity as well. So it became really difficult for me to fit into this bodybuilding thing. So then I've thought that with all the knowledge I've got, why not do a certification and educate people who are going through the same phase. So that's when I finished my certification as a nutritionist and a fitness coach. And then I started, I didn't know, again during that time, online coaching was not that famous at all. So what I did, as every single coach would do, is join in a gym. So the first time when I began my journey as a coach was in a Gold's Gym. Like I was a personal trainer at Gold's Gym, where I used to coach different people regarding resistance training. So again, to be honest, fitness in India is a men-dominant place, even in gyms. Like there are very, very few women who you can find in resistance training section. So that's again where I faced problem, because there are a lot of men around, and I faced issues with owner or male clients who used to come and train, because they try to pull my leg by asking that, hey, can I drop you back home, or hey, they used to specifically ask me doubts just to build up a conversation. So again, that became an issue for me. Working again in the gym became an issue for me, because it was a male dominant region again. So that's when I thought, why not train just women in the gym? So I talked to the owner, and I started training only women in the gym. So there was a lady who saw me losing all of the weight, and she doesn't stay in Bangalore. So she approached me in WhatsApp telling, hey, I've seen you dropping a lot of weight, and I do not stay in Bangalore. So can you just send me in WhatsApp what I have to eat and what exercises I have to do? So we started training together on WhatsApp, and she has lost almost 6 to 7 kilos just by training on WhatsApp. So then I thought, when I'm able to teach someone online and they're listening to me, why not I put that effort in training people online than doing it only in particular gym. When you do it online, you can spread that awareness to 50 people when you can do that only with 10 people in the gym. So that's when I have quit working in gym, and then I've started my online coaching business, where I've strictly niched down to women, and that to only overweight women who are dealing with all these health conditions. So basically, why I've specifically targeted only women is because, see, there are certain things like menstrual cycle, or certain weight reduction spots, or certain things which women face, and they can openly discuss with only a women coach. They, though how much great a male coaches, they still struggle to find that bond between a client and a male coach. So that's when I thought that, and that too, when a woman is overweight, she definitely struggles to speak those things with a male coach. So then I thought that, why not niche down to only women who are dealing with overweight issues or PCOD, thyroid issues. So that's when I started coaching women online. As I was speaking, I started with one lady, and then it's been almost 1.5 years since I started my online coaching business with only women, and it grew up to 280 women right now. So yeah, that's what I started doing. So that's my journey.
Nice, nice, nice. So basically, your niche is women's only.
Yes, women, and that too, who are dealing with obesity, who struggle to build up a healthy lifestyle, who are dealing with PCOD issues, thyroid issues, something like that.
Okay. So I have one question for you. So basically, uh, women facing like this new what do you say, problems during COVID-19. So can you explain how COVID-19 can what do you say, disrupt a specific like life of a woman, or specify more on that?
Okay. So basically, what most of my clients also faced is, before this COVID, they had an option to go out and work. And obviously, when you go out without knowing, your physical activity will be high, and how much you eat will be moderate compared to when you are bored and there's food in front of you. So as soon as all of this COVID thing came, obviously their physical activity has dropped down. Obviously, there's a lot of food around, and you should cook around, and you will be having a lot of options in front of you to eat. So how much calories they are consuming right now has increased, and their physical activity has dropped down. And obviously, when you stick to the same place, working out at home cannot be motivating. Has dropped down. So that's one, major drawback which women have faced because of the COVID situation. And again, adapting to whatever it is. Again, eating a little bit lesser calories than how much they used to eat before, because their physical activity is not that high compared to before now. So by dropping down their calories a little bit more, by increasing their physical activity, by doing household works, or by including resistance training at home and cardio at home, is something which my clients, I have implemented in my clients schedule, which they have seen progress as the days passed.
Nice, nice. So can you tell us the protocols you are using to train people like in COVID situations?
Okay, so basically, before even starting working with a client, I get to know how physically active they are, and I do not first itself put them to a certain activity. See, if basically, as I've told you, I train women who are overweight. When as soon as they come, I do not introduce them to squat or deadlift or something like the plank or something like that. So they need to first understand the importance of nutrition, why, what calories are, and how to get into calorie deficit, and what is the importance of staying physically active, which means moving here and there, importance of what is, need, and then without even jumping into resistance training, lifting weights, I first teach them to get the proper form of what a squat is, what a push-up is, or what a crunch is. And when they get perfect with their, regular physical activity like steps, and along with their body weight training, then I slowly introduce them to resistance training and picking up weights. So that's how I slowly, start training people.
So I have some questions is like how to train women on like the menstrual cycle. Like,
Okay.
is it way challenging than like if women's are like not on a menstrual cycle or it's opposite? Can you explain us?
Okay, so I'll just basically explain you from the scratch what a menstrual cycle is. It's like a 30-day cycle, 1 month cycle, where it starts with four phases. It's one is menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulation phase, and luteal phase. They are the four phases which women go through. It starts with follicular phase when your uterus lining thickens and when the egg starts to form. Next phase is when your egg is completely ready. It goes through your fallopian tube. It stays near your uterus and it's ready for fertilizing with the sperm. And the third phase is when it doesn't get fertilized with the sperm. Obviously, the egg which got created and the uterus lining which is thickened, because it didn't fertilize with the sperm, it'll drop down into the uterus lining, will break, and obviously it comes down as a menstrual cycle. So that's when the menses happens. So that is a four-phase cycle. And what women usually observe is it's something called PMS, premenstrual syndrome. So that syndrome happens few days before your period cycle starts. As their energy levels drop down, their cravings increase, and if they do not have a healthy lifestyle, that those effects can be extreme. Where I have seen, if they do not have a healthy lifestyle, women dealing with PCOS have women dealing with PMS symptoms usually struggle to even move around. They binge eat a lot during that time. They struggle to even hit their regular gym sessions and all of that. So there are research studies which prove that if you keep continuing your physical activity, you need not increase volume or do high intensity training during that time, but even small movement like walking or doing practicing mobility at home and doing a very slight intensity resistance training during that time and balancing maintaining balanced meals will definitely help women during their menstrual cycle, rather than just not taking care of their health at all and just staying at one place, because during their period cycle their hunger cravings increase a lot. So taking care of their food, which means when I speak of taking care of their food, if you keep a particular schedule, as soon as you get up, if you plan your meals, how much you have to eat per day, it's much easier than as soon as when your hunger strikes and there's a lot of food in front of you, you will obviously binge eat. So pre-planning, especially before your periods cycle starts, is something which is very much advantageous when women start with this cycle. So yeah, that's one way which women
One
deal
more
with
question, like
this.
in including this. So basically, is it safe to lift weights in this
During
menstrual
period
cycle?
cycle, are you
Yeah,
asking?
yeah.
Okay, so it is one big myth which women think that you shouldn't weight train during period cycle. So as I have told you, there is a research which proves that both aerobic and anaerobic exercises definitely help to improve your PMS symptoms, which means it reduces your stomach cramps. It'll help the flow be normal, and even your cravings reduce, and your cycle will be in a much proper phase if you do not. Like if you eat normally and if you include slight resistance training as well as cardio. So it is a big myth that you shouldn't weight train during rest during your period cycle. And there is again a research which proves that women tend to have more energy and more lifting strength during their period cycle, 3 to 5 days of period cycle. So women actually experience more strength during that time. So if you do not have more cramps, if you do not struggle with lot of overbleeding issues, then it's highly advisable to continue your resistance training and do your routine as usual. You need not stop anything. The only disadvantage is if you stop, you will see the adverse effects. So you can just continue the same, and you need to take care of your nutrition a lot during this phase.
Okay.
And
So
I think this is something that I have experienced with my clients as well, female clients as well. Like their strength is not like decreasing during their menstrual cycle or their period week. it's actually increasing, and it's like towards the end or the starting of their next menstrual cycle is that you will see a little decrease in their performance, or they will be more fatigued.
Can you repeat again? I didn't understand. Your voice broke in the middle.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Tell me.
So I was saying that as you said, I don't think I haven't seen any decrease in performance or in strength during the period week, but it could be like the decrease in performance could be seen before the beginning of the next period cycle, or when you are in the late follicular phase. I'm sorry, luteal phase.
Luteal phase, yes. So, as I was telling, PMS is premenstrual syndrome, which means before your menses starts, women experience these syndromes. So, it's like a cycle where during periods, women's strength will be higher, and before their periods come, their strength and their obviously their physical activity, their physical energy will be lower, and their cravings will be higher. So, there is a dip before your periods, before a women's periods start, and during menstrual cycle, it will actually be high. Their strength will be high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions, or do you want? I thought of few topics. I can speak on those.
Yeah, nice. So, I have one doubt.
Okay.
Like, is the cravings uh, if you have some craving, can you have that food, or you have to resist yourself in periods, basically?
Okay, so especially as I was talking, women experience binge eating during this time. So they try to, no, there is actually studies which prove that anything which is sweet can obviously decrease their symptoms a little bit more. And even dark chocolate can, help them. But when you consume more of fruits, more of fiber during this time, it's actually advantageous. And caffeine, along with alcohol, has a very negative impact during the period cycle. There, even the flow can reduce because of consuming alcohol, and their PMS symptoms. Which, when I speak of PMS symptoms, their cramps increase because of having more caffeine. So, and when you were asking about should they resist themselves when they get the urge to binge eat, it's you need to respect your emotional state first. If you are a person who is able to be normal only when you eat a lot of food, then you need to first understand how much portion is it required for you to eat, and why do you feel like that, and what are low calorie high volume food which you can compensate rather than binge eating on let's say potato chips, or let's say chocolates. So you can actually prioritize by swapping those items with low calorie high volume food. But still, again, if you are a person who's able to be sane and who's able to continue your physical activity by eating particular kind of food, then it's completely fine. And women feeling like that during this phase is fine. But if you eat that particular kind of food and keep that as a fuel for your next resistance training session, is it's much more sensible than restricting yourself and feeling emotionally low and not putting that work in physical activity. So that's what I tell.
Okay, nice. So, Vedant, do you have any questions on this?
Yeah. So Mona Lisa, can you talk a little more about emotional eating?
Okay, yeah. So emotional eating or binge eating basically is not a physical hunger. It's your emotional hunger, and it happens because you are either stressed out, or you are angry, or you are not emotionally happy. So people usually, when they work from morning to night, as soon as they come out from office, let it be 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, they're too frustrated, and because of that work pressure, they tend to eat a lot. So this emotional eating usually happens because of a lot of emotions striving to you, and those emotions telling that, hey, food is a relief option, and as soon as you eat a lot of food, you'll feel happy. So what usually happens is people overeat a lot because of emotional, because of a lot of emotional stress. And after that overeating, they have extreme guilt that because they have overeaten, and it's like a continuous cycle. You're stressed, you're overeating, and again you're stressed because you have overeaten. So that's one main, disadvantage of overeating. And when I speak of this, there are few things called anti-stress snacks, where you can just divert your mind from eating. You can just go for a walk, or do a little session, do physical activity, and consuming smaller frequent meals can obviously decrease your stress eating or binge eating hunger. If you are already full, if you are a person who eats for 3 times a day, you can divide it for 6 meals, so that your mind doesn't constantly go with food. And even diverting your mind from continuously consuming food to whatever physical activity or doing any other work can definitely help you to overcome binge eating. And I always suggest to people, that you need to start logging in your food, along with what time you're eating, what food you're eating, how you feel before eating that food, and how you feel after eating that food. Because a lot of people, obviously, when it comes to stress eating, if at all they fight with someone and they see food as an option of relief, and when they eat, they obviously feel better during the eating, and they feel bad after they eating. So as soon as they get that awareness that I'm eating for particular reason, awareness is again the first step for you to change. If you are aware why you're eating, you will obviously rectify and understand that you shouldn't go, or you shouldn't do that. So planning small meals, planning low calorie, high volume meals, and again tracking why you are eating and how your emotions are before you eat and after you eat is very much helpful for overcoming emotional eating.
Okay. Because I also feel like men also suffer from this problem, like emotional eating.
Yes.
When they're angry, when they're sad for something, they replace the what do you say, happiness. Like they think food is the happiness or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yes. It's for few people. It's like drinking is happiness for them. Smoking gives them relief. It's same food for some people. It's as soon as they consume a lot of food, they'll feel happy. But later there is a stress, or not stress. There is a huge amount of guilt which follows behind binge eating. So that's one major disadvantage. As long as you do not feel bad after binge eating, that's fine. But if you feel bad and you know that I am in a state where I need help, and I'm still repeating that process, that's when you struggle with whatever eating phase you are in.
Okay, so there is the point where mindset can help you a lot for this stuff.
So yeah, I'm not sure, because I have posted recently. It's more than even motivation, or more than discipline. If you plan properly, planning anything perfectly will definitely get you there. So it's not even motivation. It's not even your whatever mindset you have. Even when it comes to even when it comes to your training, your powerlifting, it's a proper plan which gives you the best results. It's not your motivation level, or it's not even your mindset. So it's how well you plan with your meals, how well you plan with your workout schedule. Is it suiting for you or not? So it's basically very much individualized, and a good plan, a smart plan, can obviously bring you great results.
But I feel like mindset plays role here. Not like what do you say? Like motivation. Motivation is for like short-term goals. I feel that, but mindset plays an important role in that. If you don't have the mindset to get strong, you will never get strong, I guess.
Yeah.
What do
So,
you think?
and you even need to know the purpose of why you are even doing this, because a lot of
Yeah,
people, they
true.
start their journey and they don't even know why they're doing, and they go back again. So knowing the why is one of the main thing which will help.
Yes.
And don't you think it will take some time for people to adhere to this new lifestyle?
To the COVID lifestyle you're speaking about?
I'm talking about the lifestyle, healthy eating and changing eating habits, planning their meals in advance.
Okay. So it's it really makes sense if you take time to adjust to this. If it's done in a very fast phase, you will obviously lose the interest in such a rate. So lifestyle is something which you repeatedly fail and understand what works best for you, and then keep following it every single week. Let it be even athletes, and a lot of coaches also still struggle with eating disorder, even binge eating, and they still struggle to even finish their workouts every single week. So it's just repeatedly failing and repeatedly doing what's best for you is a proper healthy lifestyle. So that's what people need to understand. It's not something which can achieved in one single month or 2 months. It's like a continuous process which you need to understand that you need to do for building up a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay, from that question, we can go towards to mood swings. Like women, mostly women on PMS, they feel this mood swings in this periods. So, what can you do? Like if they are not feeling up to it or feeling under the weather, are like they should lift weight or just relax or do some light exercises or something like that.
Okay, so unless someone is feeling a lot of pressure, because I've seen women who even vomit, or who even admit to hospital because of just regular periods. So unless it's that severe, it's not recommendable for you to do all of that. But if it's not so severe, as I have told, resistance training or any form of workout will definitely have a positive impact on your mental health. It will never impact a negative, it never has a negative impact, because no one can ever finish the workout and feel that, hey, I shouldn't have worked out. So as I have told, a slight exercise, let it be resistance training or even cardio or even combination of both of that, can really be helpful. And even when it comes to mental health, I'll just give a quick example. If a person is has cholesterol in their hereditary, which means their parents had cholesterol, and if they go to a doctor will tell that there are 90% chances that even you will get cholesterol. So because there are 90% chances, that person will totally give up and start eating more, thinking that I will definitely get cholesterol. So the reason is that not that you can obviously even beat what comes with your genetics because of healthy lifestyle. Same comes with your period cycle as well, because it is generalized that women have a lot of mood swings because of their period cycle. They'll be like, hey, no, I'll be cranky during this time because women are supposed to have mood swings during this time. It can obviously be worked on, because not every single woman can go crazy during this time. So it's completely person independent. It's not that women experience crazy mood swings during this time. It's controllable, and as long as you regularly work out, you take care of your nutrition, have proper sleep cycle, it's not that uncontrollable at all.
And one more question from my side.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about those cramps that happens in the period?
Okay, so as I was telling you, caffeine has a negative impact on those cramps, as well as a lot of spicy food, lot of have negative impact on that cramps. But like slight mobility can definitely help, as well as hot water bags or herbal teas or dark chocolate can obviously help to reduce those cramps. But still, workout can be there, but not excessive or very high intensity workout during that time. Anything in moderation is completely fine. So even cramps are it is manageable. Women deal with this every single month, and it's not such great such very uncontrollable thing. Nutrition as well as regular physical activity can obviously make you feel that you are not even going through period, because I've been weight training, and I've been taking care of my nutrition from almost 2 years regularly, and I don't even feel when I get my periods. I don't even feel any cramps or anything of that. So it's like, healthy lifestyle, resistance training, which means weight training, can definitely beat out, let it be genetical disorders or let it be, any psychological problems. So yeah, that's what I tell. It's like a one solution for all of it.
Okay, so can cramps be resolved by via hydration or like certain salts, potassium, or like simple coconut water drink?
Okay, so what usually happens is, I forgot to mention this point, women actually tend to bloat during this time, which will definitely increase their weight when they check. But it's obviously water weight, and you cannot put on you cannot put your body fat percentage high if you are eating same number of calories. It's definitely water weight, water fluid, which is helping you to see those extra amount of weight on the weighing machine. So you need not reduce salt, or you need not even increase salt during this time. You can just keep it constant, but you need to understand bloating is a part of your period cycle, and it's natural for women to hold water weight during this time. And as soon as the cycle gets over, if you keep continuing your physical activity, your water weight will go off, and again your weight will come down. So I've seen a lot of articles and even blogs on internet that you should do crazy changes in your meals during your period cycle and all of that. Nothing is required. As soon as you keep everything in balance, no crazy changes is required during this time. So there'll be slight bloating and water retention. So it's a part of process. You need not worry about that.
Okay. So Vedant, do you have any questions?
So moving on, as you talked about having some psychological, disorders or something. So since women could be more prone to depression and anxiety, how could you tackle that?
Okay. I'm not sure if women are the only people who tackle with anxiety and depression. It's even men too, but men don't put it out. Women just are, they show it out.
More expressive.
Yes, more expressive. Like, what do you specifically want me to talk about this?
No, let's say there is, for example, let's take your example. You were obese during your 11, 12 years, and let's say there is some person with the same condition, but they are not motivated enough to change themselves.
Okay.
They are very anxious socially
Okay.
and all that.
Okay. Okay, I got it. So, women basically, when it comes to health or when it comes to fitness, are not much aware, that too in India. So, let it be. I have approached for, a lot of women a lot of people when it comes to weight loss, and they were like, it's not necessary for women to even, start weight training, or women to even take care of their body and all. So, as long as you look fine, it's completely okay. And it needs, as you were speaking about, it needs very much willpower and your iron will to actually reduce so much weight and go through the transformation journey. It's not, compared to men, women are much suppressed when it comes to health, or when it comes to taking care of their nutrition, or when it comes to going to gym. In a regular house, if a woman tells that I need to go to a gym and I need to finish my workout session without cooking or without doing a household work, no, like I do not think that the response from a man coming will be okay. It's really really difficult for a man or for this society to prioritize women taking care of their physical body or taking care of their physical health. So women are a little bit suppressed regarding to that issue, and it's like a struggle for women to even come out. And I have trained a lot of clients where their husband never supported for them to even do weight training, or their kids never allowed them to do, or their parents never allowed them to do, so they secretly had to do it without their husband even getting to know that they are working with me. So there are a lot of issues like that. So even when I ask my clients, because it's everything online, I tell them to send their recording for me to understand how their squat or their deadlift position is. They really struggle to record in gym and send it, because they're very conscious. There are a lot of people who judge them, especially in gym, or there are a lot of men who try to talk to them, or tell so and so things. So they do it everything inside a room. So that awareness should come, and especially women should be much more aware about it's okay to consume protein, it's okay to do resistance training, and it's okay to take care of your body. And it's not only men's job to go to gym or take care of their physical health. So that's one psychological thing which women need to change.
Yeah, I guess fitness for everyone. It's not for like only
Yes, yes.
male or female aspectly, especially. So I believe
Yeah,
that
yeah. So Even when it comes to whey protein, like trust me, just probably a few years ago, when I used to speak about whey protein, everyone used to think that hey, she's suggesting some steroid, or whey protein is not for women. I still get messages like that. Hey, can whey can use be women? So I'm not sure why there is a wrong misconception of whey as well as resistance training. So it's like a common statement: women shouldn't lift weight; they'll be bulky and all of that. So yeah, as long as you are not on steroids, it's really difficult, because clients come to me, they're like, we just want to lose little weight, we do not want to become bulky like men. So I was like, I keep practicing resistance training from years, and I'm still not bulky. How do you think that you can get bulky overnight? So that's the slight things which women need to understand. And still, like, awareness is growing day by day. Women are coming out of their homes and understanding that it's okay to take care of their body. So yeah.
I like that point. Like you lift weight, you will never get bulky. So because there's
Yeah.
some male who lift weight, but they don't look like they lift weight.
Yes,
The lower
exactly.
category powerlifters, basically.
Yes, yes.
They
So
lift
there is no
like this
harm on
humongous
itself.
weight. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a myth behind this. Like if you lift weight, you look like this guy. This is on this guy or something like that. If you do cardio, you look like this girl, slim and trim, beautiful girl. So I
Yeah.
guess there's a big misconception in the fitness industry right now. So
Yeah.
what are your takes on it? Like how can you change their mindset to lift weights if they are not inclined to lifting weights?
Okay, so practically being an example in front of them, because I try to show women that hey, I eat whey protein, hey, I lift weights heavy, but still I look like a female. I do not look like a man. So being an example is something which they will get confidence that even you can do the same and still not you'll not look like that. So basically, advertising and media is one something which is responsible for this, because they advertise they do not advertise properly, and there are a lot of myths when it comes to fitness industry. I'm not sure why. Like even when I go to gym, men train their lower body in a very less frequency compared to upper body. And when I I work with women, I know how much they even hate to even do chest workout or even do any upper body training, and they're very happy doing their lower body. So it's like a comparison between men and women, where women hate to do upper body training and men hate to do lower body. Even that is one commonly found when you just go to a regular gym. So yeah, there are a lot of things which both men and women need to understand when it comes to fitness.
Yeah, basically, I love legs. I'm just like I love legs, guys. Legs is the important part of your body. If you don't build your
Yeah,
legs,
so
it's like the foundation of like your physique, basically.
I know, and your major muscle, the heaviest muscle is glutes, and you need to train that. So it's just the importance you need to understand.
Yeah, to like look good, you need to train your glutes. Men, get your point from
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, exactly. So I've
And
seen a lot of men who have like lean legs and broad chest and broad shoulders. So nothing should be disproportionate like that. It's always your body should look in a proportion both upper as well as lower body. So obviously you need to train in a frequent manner. So yeah.
Yes.
Also,
recently
Mona
I
Lisa,
saw
you
a
said
study.
that
Yes, Aniket?
No, I'm done. Deva, can you just ask your question, please?
yeah. So Mona Lisa, you said that you had some questions for us also. So you can just ask us right now. Then we can move ahead with
Okay.
our questions again.
Okay, I do not have questions. I wanted to speak about cellulite. I wanted to speak about stretch marks, and I've written few things.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would like to talk
And
about stretch
protein.
marks. I
Yes,
would
yes.
like to talk
So
about stretch marks
yeah,
because men
so
also have this big misunderstanding about stretch marks and stuff. Because I also have like many stretch marks over here, over all of my body.
Yeah.
Basically, fat male get those if your skin
yes,
condition is not good and all. So can
yes,
you
yes.
talk about more?
Okay, so I'll start with cellulite and then I'll jump into stretch marks. So, women usually face a lot of cellulite compared to men, and especially in the lower body. But you can reduce cellulite only when you combine it with resistance training. No matter how much calorie deficit you are in, no matter whatever you do, you can only reduce that cellulite when you combine it with resistance training. And that being said, only when you drop your body fat percentage, combining it with resistance training. So same comes with stretch marks as well. I have dropped from 98 to 40. So now right now I'm in 50s, managing in 50s. So I have crazy amount of stretch marks on my body, but still it's not that bad because to one extent I have combined my fat loss with resistance training. And when you combine it with resistance training, you can reduce the effect of how much loose skin you have. So basically what happens is, as when you get fat, your skin needs to expand to get adjusted to that fat, so it expands. And when you burn that fat, obviously it shrinks and it becomes stretch marks. So when it comes to the process of shrinking, obviously when you do resistance training, you build muscle over there, and because of the calorie deficit, you burn. So it's like a layer of muscle and on that fat and on that skin. So only when you build muscle and lose fat at the same time, you can properly, tone of skin over there. So that's the thing which people need to understand. There is no permanent solution for stretch marks unless you go for operations or something like that. But if you combine it with resistance training, obviously you can see a lot of decrease in your stretch marks, or you can prevent those stretch marks. So resistance training and taking care of your nutrition is something which will definitely help by bringing cellulite down, or when it comes to stretch marks as well. Because I myself have seen on the internet, they're like, you need to apply this balm so that your stretch marks goes away, or you need to drink so and so things so that your stretch marks goes away. And I have seen a lot of creams as well, so that if you apply this cream and massage in this area, your stretch mark will go away. They are just they just want to take our money. There's nothing which actually happens like that.
There's one oil also for this.
Yes.
Bio oil.
Okay, maybe there are a lot of things which are actually selling on the internet, because people want fast results. They want overnight results. They want to lose weight fast, and they want to lose stretch marks fast. So the fast thing is something which is making the other people who sell all of these products become rich.
I had this what you say, encounter with like doctor was like stretch marks we can't like really remove with like normal creams and this. We need to do some sort of surgery, laser surgery.
Surgery, obviously.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's see. So basically, it's like a cosmetic surgery. So we can't do
Yes.
cosmetic surgeries
Mhm.
because
So
I
it's
have like
like,
this. Yeah.
yeah, weight training and nutrition is like one answer for every single thing. As long as those both combine, you can reduce the even negative effects of whatever you'll be facing. And like one thing I wanted to address, there is a huge difference between fitness coach, I mean, which means a trainer, a doctor, and a nutritionist. So what wrong usually happens is, a fitness coach or a trainer in the gym tries to give nutrition advices to the client, telling that you shouldn't consume. I have heard a biggest myth that you shouldn't consume whey when you do not train. I myself have heard, a coach telling to me this before I started my nutrition journey. So that's one thing. Even doctors, there are a lot of doctors which tell that you should drink honey with lemon in the morning to lose weight. So people should do only their role which they're assigned to. A doctor should perform surgery. A nutritionist cannot go and do that. So a doctor shouldn't do what a nutritionist does, or even a trainer shouldn't give nutrition advices when he or she is not certified in that. So that is something which needs to change again in India.
I would like to ask a question over here. So,
Yeah.
what do you think apple cider vinegar plays a role in fat loss?
It just makes your teeth yellow. That's it. So yeah, apple
Because
cider
so
vinegar
many
is one.
people, like also my sister, like she loves to drink the apple cider vinegar with some lemon juice on top of it. So I was
Yes.
like, don't do this. This is all bullshit. Don't do this. She is like, I'll do it. I'll just try it for myself. I was like, okay, go. Go ahead.
Okay, there's no advantage, but the great disadvantage. It's very acidic, and when you consume it on empty stomach, it improves your acidity, and it'll help you in bloating for a if you keep continue doing that in a longer run. So it'll obviously trigger your acidity issues and your gut health if you keep consuming lemon or if you keep consuming apple cider vinegar in the morning. It's one great disadvantage for people to consume on empty stomach. Nothing like not even caffeine should be consumed on empty stomach. First thing, as soon as you get up, should be water. Only then you can consume whatever you want. So that's one of the biggest mistake what people do.
Yes.
Yeah, like you just consume apple cider vinegar and then eat whatever you want throughout the day, which will not count. So what can just 100 ml or 200 ml apple cider vinegar do in front of those many calories? So that's like
So from this topic, we can talk about gut health, about like everything. So can you explain the basic concept of what is good gut health?
Okay, so gut health is basically your digestion, your proper digestion. So why this, why women or why even men struggle with this is basically fiber intake. Fiber's role is it doesn't, in return gives you energy. Its role is to go into your body, become a liquid kind of surface, and it'll help you to clear your stomach. Yes, it'll help you to clear your stomach. So people usually do not, their fiber intake is very less. They prioritize their vegetables very low. They do not go for oats or whole wheat bread or broccoli or green peas, all of that. So as you know, Indians, we only eat rice and roti, which has very low nutritious value if you consume only that. So again, when it comes to balancing nutrition, you need to consume carbs, protein, fat, and fiber as well to improve your gut health properly. So what usually happens is if you do not consume, sufficient fiber, that too at least 20 to 25 grams of fiber per day, it'll not help you to clear your constipation as soon as you get up. And when you measure, obviously when you are constipated, that water weight will show you a lot on the weighing scale, and people will think that they have put on a lot of weight. So constipation is one of the major issue which which in returns affect your weight loss journey. So gut health plays a major role in that. And there are a lot of, again, see, I have seen a lot of people who take certain powders or who take certain liquids for their digestion to happen. And what actually happens is when you get your body to depend on a particular powder, if you if you take only that powder and your and if you clear your stomach in the morning, and on the day you do not take that powder, you actually cannot clear your stomach because your body gets adjusted to that particular supplement. So that's one disadvantage of these powders or something like that, which will help you to clear your stomach. So is it audible?
Yeah, it's audible. Yeah. So I believe that this powder is known as Isabgol.
Okay, there
It's
are a
a-
lot of powders like that.
It's mostly doctors prescribe this Psyllium husk, Isabgol.
Yes.
So basically that's fiber, I believe.
Oh no! I'm not speaking. No! I'm not speaking about this husk. So they are, certain kind of leaves which they. I'm not sure exactly what those are. So there are certain kind of leaves which they make as powder, and you need to consume that to clear your stomach. So what usually happens is your gut gets directly dependent on that powder, and if you do not consume that powder, you actually cannot clear your gut for that particular day. So instead of even going to supplement, if you take care of your fiber intake, if you take care of your water intake, you can obviously clear your gut in a much better pace than even depending on powder. Same comes with sleep. I've seen a lot of women or even men struggling with sleep. So they indirectly, what they do is they go for medication or they go for tablets, and on the day they stop having that medication, they cannot sleep properly. So that's one disadvantage of depending on supplements. So that's what people need to know. Going on the natural sources when it comes to nutrition, sleep, recovery, training phase is something which they first need to prioritize on even before going to medicines or powders or drinks.
So how can we improve our gut health?
Okay, so gut health, as I was telling, you need to consume a lot of fiber. Fiber dominant foods are green peas, whole wheat bread, or even oats, muesli, lot of vegetables, lot of fruits, banana. All of these are fiber rich foods, and you need to make sure when you track through HealthyFiMe or MyFitnessPal, it shows you how many grams of fiber you're consuming, and you need to make sure that it should be a minimum of 25 grams. So you shouldn't go below that to keep your gut health proper. So as long as you include a minimum of 25 grams fiber, you are much in a better pace when it comes to your gut health.
So can you recommend some like foods for good gut health, like good amount of fiber in it?
Okay, so yeah, as I was telling, green peas have a lot of fiber. Again, whole wheat bread has a lot of fiber. So instead of having white bread in the morning or white bread at whatever time, you can switch to whole wheat bread. Whole wheat has a lot of fiber along with a little bit more protein compared to white bread. And again, you can shift a lot of vegetables. When I speak of vegetables, it's green leaf vegetables. What mistake people usually do is when I tell them to consume vegetables, they eat onion, tomato, or something like that. Green leaf vegetables are much more nutritious and have more fiber compared to onion or tomato, and most people even mistake thinking that potato is vegetable and they consume potato in their salad. Potato is a carb. It helps you to give you energy. So when we speak about fibrous vegetables, is basically green leaf vegetables like broccoli, green peas, green beans, and lettuce and all of that. So the more greens you consume, the more whole wheat and grains you consume, the greater your fiber intake will be.
And
No.
what
So can you explain us about like caffeine intake? Like how can caffeine intake disturb your gut health and all?
Okay. So caffeine has a major role on. It has great advantages and disadvantages as well in the physical performance when it comes to your physical activity, and when it comes to your sleep, and when it comes to your digestion as well. So I'll start with advantages. So obviously, like caffeine is a stimulant which will definitely help you to give you that rush, and tell like that you're ready to work out. It gives you an immediate boost of energy, but it's not obviously physical calories like something which carbs, complex carbs, or fat gives. It is just a stimulant which gives you the rush of having a lot of energy at once. But the disadvantage is if you consume it a lot, consume more than 200 or 300 mg, it will have adverse effects which brings you to extreme anxiety. The more caffeine you consume, the more anxious you become, and your again BP level rises. And I have experience with this. Then once I forgot my pre-workout one day, and I just took few coffee packets, and I mixed it with like black coffee, and I took a lot just before starting my session. And because of taking a lot of caffeine, as soon as I just even jumped in front of the session, I really had to take a break. I really had to stop myself because
Hello, you're audible.
okay.
Hello.
Yeah, there is a disturbance, I guess.
Okay.
I
Hello.
think, yeah, it's fine now.
1 second. Let me check. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. I don't know from where the disturbance is coming. Okay. So yeah, as I was speaking about caffeine, it should be limited again. If you have more, and especially when you consume caffeine, at least there should be a gap between your sleep and caffeine. There should be at least 6 to 7 hours gap before you sleep. So there are a lot of people who consume caffeine, and that too in the evening, they struggle to sleep at night. So you need to prioritize having caffeine and restrict your consumption of caffeine post afternoon or post evening if you want to get a proper sleep. And it definitely helps you to increase your performance in the gym. But again, overdose of caffeine will definitely gives you anxiety immediately. So yeah, even when it comes to gut health, caffeine, stimulates, and it'll, immediately help you to clear your stomach right then. But it again depends on how much dosage of caffeine you're taking. So limiting your caffeine to a moderate amount, having just 2 to 3 cups of coffee is much better than having a lot of caffeine. So you need to restrict caffeine even before sleep, and you need to have it in moderation if you take it as a pre-workout.
Okay. So can you tell us about about more about pre and postbiotics?
Okay. So speaking about this, like market is filled with BCAA and people going crazy about BCAA. And a lot of people actually ask me as well, like, is it a good investment? So as far as I have experienced and I have known and studied, consuming a good combination of complex carbs will definitely help you to increase your performance in the gym rather than investing on any of BCAAs or all of that. So that's what I suggest, like, consume more of carbs, consume more of complex carbs, or if you want, you can depend on a little bit caffeine even before your session to beta alanine, which will help you to increase your performance in the gym rather than investing a lot on BCAAs or all of that.
Okay. So Deva, do you have any questions? Hello, Deva.
Hello. Yeah. So,
So
what best supplements do you prefer for your clients during a fat loss phase?
Okay. So, to be honest, even when you begin through a fat loss phase, or when you are going through a fat loss phase as a beginner, you need no supplement. Just food is much enough, because people are much interested on investing on a supplement than even working on their nutrition first or their physical activity first. So first, taking care of your food, taking care of your macros, your fiber, your water, and then your sleep, your physical activity is the first priority. And after you are able to manage all of that, when you are in an intermediate or an advanced stage, then investing on whey, obviously, because you can just easily consume, you can just easily get 23 grams or 22 grams of protein per scoop. So it's actually much time efficient rather than investing a lot on cooking and having a lot of protein dominant foods like chicken or all of that. So whey is one suggestible supplement, and casein is not actually required, because again, if you mix with milk or mix with a little bit fats at night and consume at night, that pretty much works as casein. So you need not invest on that. Keratin, if at all you are intermediate or an advanced level lifter, then obviously keratin definitely helps you to increase your performance as well as your muscle size as well. Along with that, fish liver, fish oil, omega-3 fish oil. So that is basically your healthy dietary fat. So basically, fats they are two kinds of fats which your body produces by yourself, and again, something which you can supplement from outside. So fish is very much rich in this omega-3, omega-3 fat. So if at all, not every single person consumes fish, or they can get the omega-3 fat from fish. So consuming omega-3 supplement will obviously regulate your dietary fat intake, as well as it definitely helps your muscle as well. So again, fish liver oil is one supplement which I suggest, and I guess so. Yeah, fish as well as fish liver oil, omega-3 as well as whey. These both are something which is suggested.
okay. So Vedant, do you have any questions for her?
Yes. And Mona Lisa, what would you talk about the health changes that occur in females with age?
Okay, yeah. Great. So, like, females should understand that as they grow old, their metabolism drops down. So, the importance of rest, including resistance training, and importance of tracking their nutrition is very much required. And And when I speak about as you age, women actually tend to experience lot of, especially women after their pregnancy, they lose lot of calcium. So obviously their bone density gets low, so they need to consume a lot of calcium through meals. When I speak about calcium, it's like through dairy, and they need to prioritize their protein intake. The more they age, the more their protein intake should be, along with fiber, as well as the importance to resistance training. So obviously your metabolism drops down, and dropping your body fat percentage is not as easy as a teenager, but still, to obviously not struggle with joint issues, or to avoid a lot of muscle cramp complications, you need to combine resistance training with cardio and nutrition as well. And obviously prioritizing your protein, until unless you have some uric acid issue or kidney issue, consuming protein at least 1.2 or at least 1.5 grams of protein per kg body weight is much suggestible as you age. So that's one underrated concept of and that too in India, because people usually struggle to consume protein, or people usually even to even lack the importance of protein, because most of the meals which we consume are carb dominant. We prioritize protein very low. It's unlike people who eat in abroad, or people who eat in America. So usually they have a lot of meat, or other meal options. So complete amino acid profile foods are very less when Indians eat. It's available in meat, or it's available in eggs, or hardly in soya. So they need to understand that it's important for them to consume protein along with fiber, for them to combine it with resistance training, so that they build muscle rather than just having carbs. So the importance of protein is something which is very much underrated over here.
So, do you think the women who have uric acid issues, if they consume a little more amount of protein, could they face more, joint pain or gout issues?
Yes, yes. So, women as well as men who have uric acid issues should consume almost 1.4 to 1.5 grams of protein per body weight. That's it, not more than that. So, obviously, they will face joint issues if they consume more. So, limiting themselves to 1.4 to 1.5 is much enough if at all you have uric acid issues.
And do you think women don't accept to eat whole eggs as compared to men?
Okay, yeah, yeah. Because like lot of clients approach me asking that because yolk has a little bit more cholesterol, and it's cholesterol dominant. It's bad for fat loss. So that's one of the myths. It's same like how dairy is not good for fat loss. It's same like that. Consuming whole egg is again bad for fat loss. See, any form, cholesterol is found only in foods which comes from animals, which are animal sourced foods. All whole meats have cholesterol again, and again egg, because it comes from an animal, it has cholesterol, and even dairy has cholesterol. But obviously, as you speak, not all cholesterols are bad. There is a certain it's a ratio between LDL and HDL. As long as your cholesterol range is fine, and consuming egg is not bad, because even today morning I was speaking of it. It has vitamin B12, vitamin D, vitamin A, and iron. So consuming whole egg is much more nutritious. So you need to just adjust your macros, adjust your calories, and make sure that you consume whole egg as well without eliminating your yolk. So people need to understand it's not a particular food item which will help you to gain weight. It is just you being in calorie deficit. You overeating and you undertraining will put you help growing that fat. It's not a one particular food item, or it's not just a bowl of rice, or it's not just one banana which is helping you to put on weight. It's you overeating a lot which is making you to put on weight.
And since you have experience of working with more than 280 women, have you noticed any difference when women once approach menopause? Is there any difference in the rate of weight loss or any resistance training effect?
Okay, so as soon as women reach their menopause phase, as I was telling, as they age, obviously their metabolism slows down. So as I have noticed, I have coached around 20 women who have reached their menopause phase. So obviously the rate, how much, the rate at which how they drop their body fat percentage is very, very slow compared to people who are in still their cycle is normal. Because of their hormonal health, as when the menopause is attained, obviously they do not go through the menstrual cycle, and the uterus wall do not breaks down and drops all the unused blood. Their metabolism slows down, and that's still not a very big hindrance, because as long as you take care of your rest and training and your basic sleep and your nutrition as well, it doesn't become a much hurdle. But obviously, as you hit menopause, you will definitely notice your metabolism will slow down compared to how it is when your cycle is regular.
And what about during pregnancy and post pregnancy?
Okay. So what women usually do mistake is they think that you shouldn't work out. Same like periods. They think that you shouldn't work out when you're pregnant, but it is really, really advantageous when having a even small physical activity when you're pregnant, or even taking care of nutrition when you're pregnant. So there are two mistakes. What women usually do during pregnancy is they try to eat more because there is a baby, or even pregnancy, they try to eat less because they want to drop their body fat percentage in a very faster pace. So what usually happens is you need not consume more food because you have a baby. You can just keep stay in a maintenance phase, and you can continue small workouts, like when it comes to not even heavy training, small mobility or even small cardio, little intense cardio will definitely help your cycle to be your pregnancy cycle to be in a much healthier phase. And especially after your pregnancy cycle, you shouldn't go in a deficit, because you will be still in a phase where you will be breastfeeding your baby, and when you go in a deficit, you will not have that energy. And obviously when you are in a surplus during your whole 9 months, and when you suddenly go to deficit and you're still feeding a baby, you will experience a lot of muscle loss again over there, and you will experience a lot of calcium drop in the body. Along with that, you will obviously do not have that energy levels. You will feel fatigue. So staying in maintenance phase after your pregnancy, and slowly including your resistance training back to your routine along with whatever phase you're going on is much suggested. So do not drop suddenly in a deficit after your pregnancy phase.
So basically, they could take a slow approach to get back to their pre-pregnancy weight.
Yes, yeah, they shouldn't go on a deficit. They should maintain in maintenance phase itself, maintenance calories, and they need to slowly start including resistance training again.
And since you have worked with clients for fat loss, once your client has achieved their goal weight, how do you get back to dieting? Do you reverse diet, or what is the process after that?
Okay. So when it comes to training women, especially, I do not go behind weight unless that particular female is extremely obese. I do not target weight a lot. So it's basically their inch measurement and their body fat percentage, because there are a lot of women, their weight is in BMI itself, but still the body fat percentage is obese. So body fat percentage is something which I take care of. And obviously, when it comes to calorie deficit, it will help you to lose weight, but along with that, you will definitely lose your muscle, lean body muscle along with that, and your metabolism slows down. So it's not suggestible for any person until and unless she is overweight. It's not suggestible for any person to stay in deficit for even more than 4 to 5 months. So after 4 to 5 months, if her weight is normal but still her body fat percentage is high, I will definitely bring them back to maintenance phase. And in the maintenance phase itself, I increase their physical activity. I increase their steps, their cardio, as well as their their resistance training session, and I keep them in the maintenance phase for a few months. And if depending on how their body is responding, how they're still dropping the weight, I keep them in deficit back again, or they tell them to continue in maintenance itself. So to be honest, if you are not extremely obese, then deficit is something which is not suggestible for anyone. Stay in maintenance phase, eat in maintenance phase, and take care of your physical activity rather than even dropping your calories down than how much you're eating. So until unless you're too overweight, do not drop your calories down.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, do you have any topics you wanted to talk about?
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to talk about flexible dieting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so what mistake people usually do, as I was speaking, even when I thought of starting my fat loss journey, I starved myself. So flexible dieting is something where you get to eat whatever you want and still stay in your calorie and your macro limit. So that's what people usually understand. If you, let's just say, if you love chole bhature a lot, and if your coach tells that you shouldn't eat that particular food and you restrict yourself for a particular time, how long can you restrict yourself from not eating your favorite food? You will obviously someday binge eat on that, your particular food. So when it comes to flexible dieting, if your trigger is chole bhature, or let's just say, taking an example of peanut butter, lot of people overeat peanut butter. So when you are struggling with a relationship like that, you need to consume peanut butter. You need to include that peanut butter slowly into your meals, into very small proportion, and you need to build a relationship understanding that, hey, it's okay consuming a particular food. It will not hinder your fat loss journey. Only consuming in surplus will hinder your fat loss journey. So that's one advantage of consuming in flexible dieting. You get to eat whatever you want, but still you'll be taking care of having balanced meals like protein, carbs, fat, and fiber. So yeah, flexible dieting is something which people really need to work on, rather than even doing keto or intermediate fasting. Sorry, not intermediate fasting, keto or different kinds of Mediterranean diets or all of that. So if you cannot restrict a particular category of food for a longer run, being a human, you need to eat everything. You are born eating all of that. So obviously you cannot sustain in a longer run. So flexible eating obviously will let you eat whatever you want and still stay in the particular limits by eating all sorts of foods.
So, is flexible dieting different from if it fit your macros?
Uh, See, no, both are basically same, right?
I
That's what
guess.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, both are basically same. If it, so flexible dieting is basically, you can eat whatever you want. It's combination of nutritious food as well as combination of your favorite food. So yeah, okay. So if it just strikes. So if it fits in your macros, what usually happens is, people, it's not only you staying in calorie deficit, is are you able to reach your protein intake as well. So it's what usually mistake they do when it comes to your flexible dieting is, they try to stay in the calorie deficit itself, but they do not prioritize their protein intake. They do not take care if their carbs are going high. So if your limit is, yeah. If your limit is 1500 calories is your deficit, you can even consume all of those 1500 calories from fats and carbs and still stay in deficit and lose weight. But that is not what, eating balanced meals are. Prioritizing protein, and you need to make sure that your carbs do not spike high. It's like a proper ratio between protein, carbs, and fat, and staying in your calorie deficit is what a flexible eating is.
Okay, great. So moving on, one point we wanted to talk to you about was PCOD.
Okay, so PCOD is polycystic ovary syndrome, where in the ovaries, their cyst will get developed or your ovaries get enlarged. So this basically happens because this is just a consequence of and even 2 years ago, if you probably our parents' generation or even our mother's generation, this thing wasn't even existing. No one even had this, or no one even used to know even what PCOS is. So because people used to be physically active during that time, and they never used to rely on food sources which is available online, or fast food sources which have high preservatives or high trans fat or high cholesterol. So because we are able to see PCOD or PCOS symptoms as the generations are passing, because people are becoming less physically active and people are consuming less nutritious dense food. So that's one of the basic consequence of it's PCOD is just something like obesity because of the unhealthy lifestyle which people are putting on. It's definitely showing effect on their hormonal health. For your hormonal health to be regular, you need to be physically active and consume balanced meals. As long as you are not physically active, you will obviously see consequences because of that. So PCOD is something basically like that.
So, what
So
effect
yeah.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, so like the symptoms of PCOD are your period cycle. You will either be over bleeding or you'll be under bleeding. So if like your regular cycle you'll be getting on each month. If you have PCOD, you will be either getting twice or thrice per month, or you will be getting once in every 3 to 4 months. So it's like under or over your cycle. Um, so there will be tablets and there will be a lot of contraceptive pills to take care of this. But again, as long as you'll be taking the pills, your cycle will be regular. Again, your cramps will be a lot and your PMS symptoms will be a lot. If you stop taking those pills again, your cycle will not be regular. So even when you go to a gynec doctor, the doctor will tell that you need to take care of your lifestyle, you need to take care of your nutrition, you need to drop your weight, and only then these tablets also will help, because you cannot depend on any tablet for a longer run. So there are a lot of researches which prove that women, as soon as they take care of their nutrition, as soon as they drop 5 to 6 kilos and bring their BMI to normal, they get their cycle regular. So it's like one solution. As long as you take care of your nutrition and be physically active, you will not face this issue.
And what effect does it have on training regularly?
Sorry?
What effect does it have on training?
What effect does it have
Yeah.
on training, you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like people usually think that you need to eliminate dairy, or you need to eliminate carbs completely, or you shouldn't do resistance training because you have PCOS. There is nothing like that. So there will obviously the estrogen levels will be more for women who have PCOS than normal women. To be honest, women who struggle with PCOS have much strength and muscle capacity than a woman who is BMI or is normal or even underweight. So actually, they can lift more heavier than people who are people who are in normal weight or who never do resistance training. So there is nothing like they need to have a separate training plan, or they need to have a separate protocol. Everything can be fine. They like it's the same like how you train a normal person itself, but you need to make sure that weight loss will definitely help a person who is struggling with PCOS. And when it comes to weight loss, you can obviously lose weight in any way. You can starve yourself and lose weight. You can overtrain and lose weight, but it's always with a proper combination of resistance training, cardio, and taking care of your meals. So all of these three will definitely help you to overcome PCOS.
Great. So, what could be the other health issues that women commonly face?
Okay, so basically women deal with obesity, PCOD, and thyroid. So even when it comes to thyroid, as I gave an example of cholesterol, when doctors tells you that your father has cholesterol, you might as well have cholesterol. Same like thyroid itself. So people, when they gain weight, or when they become overweight, they blame cholesterol. They do not blame their calorie surplus. They do not blame their lack of physical activity. They directly blame their cholesterol. So same comes with thyroid. There are studies which prove that as long as you stay in you stay in calorie deficit or calorie maintenance and take care of your nutrition, take care of your physical activity, if it's regular, you can definitely decrease your TSH levels. So I myself have trained clients who have a particular TSH level, and the level came down as they continued taking care of their nutrition as well as physical activity. So let it be thyroid, let it be diabetes, let it be obesity, let it be PCOS, every single thing can be back to normal. You can beat out your genetical disorders as well if you take care of your nutrition and be physically active.
And since we talked about women older in age, with age, as you said, calcium levels drop. So the chances of getting arthritis also increases.
Yes, yes. It definitely
So,
does increase. You can obviously, take precautionary measures by taking sufficient calcium, taking sufficient iron in your meals, and including your physical activity, like including resistance training as your physical activity.
but don't you think women will little fear a little to approach the barbell or do some activity if they having already having pain in their limbs?
Okay, so yeah, I obviously, because I train women, it's very common because even before I train women, I tell them to fill a form where I ask them to list out whatever physical activity, or sorry, whatever physical constraints they have. So it's very common for women to fill out that they have back pain, they have neck pain, and they have knee pain. So these are like something very common which I find in women, and they obviously struggle to do lunge. They obviously struggle to do Bulgarian split squat. So because they have knee issues. So obviously, you eliminating those exercises completely is not something which you need to do ideally. So if you struggle with knee issues, taking care of your hamstring, strengthening your hamstring, and slowly including body weight training and building up your strength on your surrounding the joint will definitely help them completely eliminating whatever exercise you're doing. So yeah, even when it comes to arthritis, you need not completely stop your resistance training, but strengthening your muscles will definitely help you not to have that direct impact on joints.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have heard this thing or not, but recently I came across a statement which said that butter, or let's say clarified butter or ghee, as it has saturated fat, it could be a better source for lubricating your joints. Is it true or just a false statement?
Okay, so your dietary fat, your total, the net amount of dietary fat, how much you consume will obviously, tell you how your body performance is. It's not a particular food. It's same when it comes to fat loss as well. Same comes to your, let it be ghee or something as well. So it's not like as soon as you consume ghee, it'll like go to the joint and it'll help you in lubrication. It's nothing like that. It's a combination of when it comes to dietary fat, there are a lot of good healthy fats like your nuts, seeds, butters, and ghee obviously as well. So I don't agree with what this statement. So because it doesn't, no particular food item directly shows you an impact on your physical activity. It's just your net macros by the end of the day how it's going to respond.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I have a question over here. Can
Yes.
meditation help in reducing the pain?
Uh, Reducing what pain?
Mental
Like,
pain.
Yeah.
like the pain, like as Vedant asked you the question about calcium deficiency. If like they have some pain like arthritis or something else, if meditation could help us.
Okay, so meditation is basically it's related to your mind. If at all you are a person who's dealing with anxiety, meditation obviously helps because we are in a phase, we are in a that too in this generation. We just as soon as we wake up, we keep running somewhere because we have a lot of things to do. So meditation is something which will tells you to calm down and stay in a particular place. But obviously, meditation is something which is related to your mind, and it doesn't have an impact on your body, or it doesn't have impact on how your vitals function. It's basically your mind thing, and I like there is no scientific reason how meditation can directly impact your body or your physical performance or something like that.
I think Aniket wanted to say yoga. Yeah, Aniket,
Hello. Yeah.
did you wanted to say yoga, but you misquoted and said meditation?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Like both are completely opposite. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, yoga is something like, yeah, like our mobility, how we do it's required for you to yeah, for you to perform very well. Obviously, when you do not practice your mobility drills and you jump into your resistance training, obviously it has effect on how your performance is. But if you take care of your mobility before even you start lifting, it will obviously help your whatever lifts you do. It's same like that. So yoga and mobility, so yoga and meditation are completely different. See, I have got a lot of questions again where women are much approachable to yoga than resistance training because they think that yoga is women thing and resistance training is not women's thing. but still, it's like calisthenics. Has a different effect on your body. Yoga has a different effect on your body. Resistance training has different. Resistance training takes care for you to build lean muscle, whereas yoga will definitely help you to help you to build your mobility. So just relying on one particular source is not something good. You can include yoga to help you to lift better than depending only for that, because it will definitely not you to help you. Definitely doesn't help you to put on lean muscle. So yeah, it's like a combination of your mobility as well as your cardio as well as your resistance training.
Yeah, so Mona Lisa, have you experimented with powerlifting in your training?
No, I have never. I have friends who are powerlifters, but I have never experienced. It's only bodybuilding till now.
But don't you think adding the squat, bench, and deadlift can add to, give you some advantage?
No, I obviously do squat, deadlift, and bench, but I have never specifically gone for any competitions. I definitely, because me being a woman and that too being obese, I have struggled with bench. Trust me, my squat, how much I can lift in my squat and my deadlift is like nothing compared to my bench. Like I have even struggled to, lift 25 kilos or even 30 kilos on a bench, being a woman. So I've begun in a very slow pace, but obviously it did help me, and I'm a person who is very much supportive when it comes to compound lifts than isolated lifts, so isolation exercises. So women should definitely prioritize on their squat, bench, and deadlift. But I do not speak more about these three things on my page, because most people who approach me are overweight, and when I speak to them about deadlift, they'll be like they are still even struggling to even get a proper body weight squat. So yeah, my target audience are something different. That's why I do not post more about this. And probably, yeah, if the gym's open, if the COVID situation goes down, if we can, like, when I start working, if at all there are chances, I can probably start trying in powerlifting competitions as well, because I have friends who are powerlifters. So yeah, I actually feel powerlifting is much more sensible than bodybuilding. I know I shouldn't put this out, but because I have gone through that phase, I know how your health affects when you do your when you go into bodybuilding stage shows. So yeah, powerlifting is like, you really can eat good food, you can eat whatever you want and put that energy in your physical activity, you can lift well. So yeah.
It's not like 100% true. Sometimes, you can be 10 kg above your water, weight category, do a water cut and puke on stage. Am I right, Aniket?
Oh,
Yes,
I don't know. Okay.
I had the bad
So
experience of this.
why does it usually happen? Like, why do you puke on stage?
Aniket, you go
I
first.
guess I believe it's because of the stress of the competition, because
Okay.
it was a big competition for me.
Okay. Ha ha ha.
I was stressed out, like how I'm going to perform and all. But I was going through a water cut. That's also a stress. I had
Hmm.
lesser calories that night, so
So
more.
yeah, like I wanted to know, because in your bodybuilding phase, before you step on the stage, you obviously have to cut down your salt as well as your water and your carbs. Obviously, you cannot eat oats and all. You need to completely depend on vegetables as your carb source. So do you have nutrition restrictions when it comes to
No, no,
powerlifting,
we don't.
especially before you step on the stage?
No, no, we don't. We need to weigh at a specific body weight to compete in a specific category.
Okay,
So
okay.
my category was 105 kg, under
Mhm.
105 kg, and I was weighing at around 1010 or 1012, I guess. So I had to cut like 7 kgs of uh, body weight at that time. So basically, I did a small water cut, so
Small.
I can
Okay. So
regain the.
did you see that your strength has decreased, or how much you have to lift has decreased because of that?
There was a minute strength decrease, but not a lot,
Okay.
not because it was very fast, and
Okay.
I
Okay.
gained the water back in like around 1 to 2 hours.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Yeah,
So
so,
yeah, yeah. Tell me. Yeah.
yeah. So, since powerlifting is a, I'm sorry, weight category related sport, so it is very essential for you to maintain your weight in the weight category that you should be competing in. But sometimes you're having such amount of muscle, but you are over the weight class. In that scenario, you have to do some water cuts in order to fit into the lower weight class. So
Okay.
unless and until you know the given weight, it is good for you to eat at a maintenance or consume more calories when you're closer to the competition. But when you do a water cut, there are many things that you have to take into consideration. First of all, you have to load water and drop water at the last day, so that you can still be losing water as usual, because there's a
Okay.
process. For the first 3 to 4 days you have to increase your total water intake, which is like 2 to 3 times your normal intake, and on the last day you will drop it, so that you will be continuously losing that water, and on the last date you will still be losing that water after you have given your weight. And one of the things that you should be considering is eating low fiber food, since because if you consume more fibrous
Yeah,
food,
obviously water.
yeah, the gut content will also increase, and also fiber will hold on to more water. So if you consume low fibrous food, it will be easier to lose weight because the gut content will be, you know, the low in the first place.
Okay, so even women, like women powerlifters, do they deal with this weight issue, fitting in the weight category issue?
I think it's mostly on the high level stage, national or international, or else women don't, go for this because it might have an adverse effect on their performance. Men can sometimes, muscle up or just do what they do regularly, and they still see some decrease in their strength, depending on how the recomposition goes after water cut. But in my experience, women don't usually do this. It's more of a men thing, at least at the state and national level. But at the international level you might see women doing it, and those are strong women, ripped, like with abs and all. So they are experienced, so you won't see a newbie powerlifter women doing water cuts and all. Their primary approach should be getting stronger as much as they can in their respective body weight category.
Okay. And I even wanted to ask, like, do you guys coach online or is it one-on-one in the gym?
No, no, online.
Online.
Actually, we all are students, so we actually don't get time to, train in the gym and all. So
Okay.
we just train online.
So I have a
Uh,
doubt. So, say like because I train people online when it comes to your weight loss, it's really easy. I tell them what to eat and I tell them body weight workouts. But for you guys, it's very specific. You need to talk about grip, about your feet position, about your breath, and all of that. How do you manage to do it online? Because you could do it much easier if you beside that client. So is it really easy for you to do it online?
Okay, so first of all, it depends on the client, because we are approached by clients who already know what exercise they are doing in the gym, and they are, they're not, necessarily just powerlifting clients. I have also trained people in my gym as well and online as well to lose weight and gain muscle, regardless of their style of training. So when you're doing, in my opinion, when you coach online, the main thing is programming, how you program the lifts, and if the person is, well versed with how to do the movement. And that's why in the first couple of weeks are very crucial, because you have to receive all those videos from them and see if the technique is on point or not. And it is very easy to convey through video calls or through just editing your video with your voiceover, their video with your voiceover, and explaining what mistakes they made and what changes they can do in the next coming weeks. And usually, in my experience, those techniques are corrected in 1 or 2 weeks of training.
Okay. So have you experienced any clients getting injured during their online
No, no, no.
sessions?
That's
Okay.
good. Not. Nothing
Yeah.
serious.
Nice. That's so nice.
Sometimes they go overboard, because my approach is to start a little light, see how they move things, because in the first initial couple of weeks I can't give them 80% of their previous 1 rep max, because I want to see how do they perform the how do you execute the technique at a low weights, and then I will increase the weight gradually. Depends on the athlete what kind of programming I want to give them. But I think it's important for them to master the technique first before approaching any other surrounding issues, and 80 to 90% of
Exactly.
the time it's the technique.
Okay. Nice.
but it is very for clients to go overboard sometimes. The training is going very good, and it's very tempting to attempt their 1 rep max or test the new maxes. It is very tempting. So I think it has happened only once that my client went overboard and he maxed out on spot. So that was one instance. Otherwise, it has never happened.
Okay. All right. Okay. Nice. So yeah, like, do you guys want me to speak about anything else?
I want to talk about stretch marks and fat loss. Have you talked about loose skin?
Sorry, have you?
Yeah, loose skin.
Yeah, loose skin. Yeah, as I was telling, same when it comes to stretch marks itself. When your fat, as I was telling, your fat layer and then your muscle and skin on top of that. So when your fat obviously increases, your skin has to stretch to get adapted to it. So when you again drop your fat, or even your muscle, or even you grow your muscle or you lose your muscle, your skin expansion and contraction happens, and that's the reason why stretch marks are formed. So they can be reduced to a certain extent when you combine it with resistance training and nutrition, obviously, but you cannot eliminate it for a in a complete manner. But when it comes to your loose skin, if you are losing with a combination, if you are losing your weight with a combination of resistance training, you will have very loose skin than compared to, if you do not combine it with resistance training and you just only stay in calorie deficit. So if you always combine it with resistance training, you will definitely not have that much loose skin than how much you can have.
And once your client is in calorie deficit, let's say for a couple of weeks or depending on the amount of fat loss, what if they go overboard on calories once in a while?
It's very common. It's very common to happen something like that. And see, as long as my client is not competing, or she's not into bodybuilding, or she doesn't have a photo shoot or any session like that. As long as she doesn't have any deadline, it's completely okay to go in calorie surplus for 1 or 2 days, so 1 or 2 days. So I tell them to just be normal, just get back to track from the second day itself. Because usually what people do is, if they overeat on Wednesday, they're like, okay, I already ate, so again from Wednesday to Sunday, let me overeat and let me start my diet from Monday. So that's one common thing which people usually do. Just because of 1 or 2 days staying in calorie deficit, the whole week they try to put themselves in calorie deficit. So that's not required. Again, from the next meal or again from the next day, you can start back through your own routine and start putting how much ever calories they have eaten. They can fuel it for their workout rather than feeling very demotivated, or stop working out or continue their staying in surplus. So that's one thing. Like, it's a part of life. You will definitely eat in calorie surplus during certain days, and it's completely okay. What main thing what you have to take care is, again, getting back to your normal regular schedule from the next day or from the next meal is something what is required.
Or else, do you decrease the calories in the following, remaining days of the week to
No.
compensate?
So I do not personally do this, because when you are in calorie, so let's just say Monday, Tuesday, you are in deficit. Wednesday, you have overeaten. And Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, if I keep you in deficit, if I suddenly drop your calories, there is a thing called body defense system, which will tell you to continuously, that you need to consume more calories. Your body doesn't have the capacity to suddenly adjust to whatever you eat. So if you have eaten a lot for one day, next day, if you suddenly drop calories, you will definitely experience a lot of craving. You feel fatigue, and obviously you cannot give that much performance in the gym. So I tell them to maintain the normal phase. You need not decrease until unless you are competing, and until unless you have certain targets to reach particular deadlines, it's completely fine. You need not stay in deficit for the rest other days. Going surplus for 1 day or 2 day will definitely not hinder your process in a long run. So you will gradually learn how not to stay in, how not to even go, for surplus. So yeah, that's what I tell them.
Yeah, great. So I think we are done with the questions. Do you have any for us?
No. No, nothing right now. So like, do you guys train like women powerlifters as well?
Yeah, I currently have two female clients who are doing powerlifting training. So one lives in New Zealand, so that's pretty accessible to the gym. And one actually she has not been to the gyms in the past 3 years. I'm sorry, past 3 months due to the COVID thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are you managing? Uh, do you have equipment right now?
For me personally,
Yes.
no. To be honest, home gyms don't motivate me much to do training and all. Sometimes if I'm in the mood, I do a couple of sets of push-ups and pull-ups if possible for supersets and get a good pump, but nothing more than that.
Okay. So do you think you started eating more because of COVID? Did anything like that happen?
No, no. So basically, it's been an ectomorph in my entire life. So it could be,
Yes, I remember seeing. Yeah.
yeah. So it could be difficult for me to gain weight. And usually, actually, I have scale, but my food weighing scale. But actually, my diet is not on point right now. So I'm just eyeballing my portions and eating at maintenance.
Okay, nice. So what about you, Aniket? How is your food going on?
Like from past few days, I'm been on track again on
Okay,
the
nice.
nutrition side because of this book actually. Uh, got this
What
book
is
from Lalita.
Oh, Lalita is okay.
Yeah,
Who gave you Lalita or Rakshay?
Lalita.
Lalita, okay, nice.
So this is
Good that
for
you're
mostly workout
enjoying
logging. So I use this for
it.
nutrition logging because I love to write down my nutrition on this. It's very nice actually
Okay. Okay,
to see the
yeah.
photo. To see the photo of
I
Goku.
did.
I love
Yeah.
Goku. Actually, he's my favorite character in anime.
Oh, that's so nice. You watch anime. I asked Lalita like a copy of this as well, so I'll be taking. I want to log as well. So being 90s kids, we still have a habit of writing on books. We cannot log frequently in the apps as well. So we feel much comfortable dropping down in the books how many sets I have done, what did I eat, and all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually, I log on Excel sheet and on the book also. I have two copies of
Okay.
it. So
If at all you lose one, backup.
after 1 week, I just recollect all the data because it's easier to view like the total data on the PC than in the book.
Okay.
Long-term
Yes,
plan,
yes,
yeah,
true.
and it's more accessible. If the book gets like destroyed or something, I have this
Oh,
Excel
destroyed.
sheet. Yeah, it can get
I
destroyed.
guess
I'm a destructive person.
I don't think so. Our next generations will be doing this, like noting down everything in a book. Because my cousins itself, they start using iPad from 1 year. So like as soon as they hit 1 year. So I don't think so. People will start using books in next generations like us.
Actually, I hate writing down anything, but the book is so nice. I have to write something now.
That's a nice wish. Lalita was there to listen to this. She must have felt happy.
I'll just tag her in the post. So I
Okay.
guess this is a good time to end the podcast. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mona Lisa, to being on the podcast. We will love to have you again to talk about more female lifters and female bodybuilders, everything. So thank you.
Yeah.
So stay strong, sada strong raho. Peace out.
Thank you.